Hello everyone and welcome to week 6 of our virtual reading buddy sessions. So we are ready to read chapter 11 today. As always, make sure that you have your equipment ready, highlighter, pen and a ruler so that you can follow along. And also make sure that you are up to chapter 11 ready to read on. Okay, so just to summarise what happened in chapter 9 and 10. So we know that Katniss is ready to start the Hunger Games. She is ready to go into the arena. She's gone through all the preliminary stages. So preliminary means the stages before something, so the bit before a competition. Okay, so as always, I've got questions again from chapter 9 and 10. So the first question is, what does Peter admit to at the end of chapter 9? So what feelings, just to help you out, does Peter admit to at the end of chapter 9? The answer is on page 125. Question 2 is, what does Katniss have to have inserted into her arm? The answer can be found on page 137. And question number 3, what number Hunger Games is this? So on page 141, it tells us which number Hunger Games this is. And the +1 question, the stretch yourself question, is what do you predict will happen during the Hunger Games? So what outcome do you think will happen? Okay, so I'm just going to pop them back all on screen. Have a go at answering them. Okay, so pause there if you need a bit more time. If not, I'm going to go through the answers. So the answer to question number 1 is Peter admits to having feelings for Katniss. Okay, so he says that he has romantic feelings for Katniss and that lots of guys back in District 12 do. Okay, so this really enrages Katniss. It makes her really mad and she goes and pushes him and makes his hand bleed because she thinks that he's doing it for the attention. But actually, as Haymitch and the team point out to Katniss, it really helps her because it makes her seem desirable. So sponsors might want to give her money and things to help her during the games now. Yeah, so he says he has feelings for Katniss. We don't know if they're true or not. So I predict they are true, that he does have feelings for Katniss. He respects her, he admires her. But I predict that Katniss will be defensive and not accept that. So using those reading skills, summarising the information and predicting. Number 2, what does Katniss have to have inserted into her arm? So she has a tracking device. So that is so the TV crews know where she is when she enters the arena, so she can be watched at all times. Like reality TV, they're being watched every stage of the day. So she has this tracking device. So it sort of shows to me that it's a form of control. So they're tracking where she is at all times. What number... the answer, is tracking device. What number Hunger Games is it? It's the 74th Hunger Games. So that means 73 innocent people have died already as a form of this dystopian state controlling people and killing one person a year to show that a rebellion is a very bad idea and that the state has the power to kill people. So it's the 74th one. And what do you predict will happen? So my prediction is that Katniss will somehow win because she is our protagonist. She's our heroine of the story. So it makes sense for her to win. But also predict somehow Peter will also stay alive. I feel like there must be a happy ending in relation to their relationship. So let's find out. We're going to go to chapter 11. And remember, it's a great practice to try and have your online dictionary ready for clarifying any tricky words. I'm just going to zoom in and make sure it's not blurry at the sides, hopefully. Okay, let's begin. Getting my highlighter ready. 60 seconds. That's how long we're required to stand on our metal circles before the sound of a gong releases us. So a gong, you might want to Google search that to see a picture of it. So it's like a huge metal drum. I think it's from China originally. That is used at the beginning of games to symbolise the beginning. So it's a symbol of a beginning. And I'm just going to make a little note of the language technique that our author has used here, 60 seconds. So if I ask you a question, so what type of sentence has she began the chapter with? Hopefully you would come up with the answer, a short sentence. Now this chapter, I would say, is the action sequence of the story. It's where the Hunger Games begin. So we would call that the climax if we're thinking about our narrative arc, where we have the setup and then the peak. So I would say we are currently at this stage of the story. I'd say that's where we are now if we're thinking this is the beginning of the text and this is the end, where the action's going to take place. So using a short sentence there informs us of that. 60 seconds, so it's a time, it's quick, it's bringing pace to the text. Step off before the minute is up and landmines blow your legs off. 60 seconds to take in the ring of tributes, all equidistant from the cornucopia. So equidistant means equal, so an equal distance. We can find that in the word equi, equal, distant, distance, from the cornucopia. So this is a word that relates to this text. The cornucopia is something in the middle of the arena that all the tributes have to get to. Okay, so we're going to find out more about that. A giant golden horn shaped like a cone with a curved tail, the mouth of which is at least 20 feet high, spinning over with the things that will give us life here in the arena. Food, containers of water, weapons, medicine, garments, fire starters. So that's the list there of just things that are in the cornucopia that the tributes have to try and grab without being killed to help their survival during the games. Strewn around the cornucopia are other supplies, their value decreasing the farther they are from the horn. For instance, only a few steps from my feet lays a 3-foot square of plastic. Certainly it could be of some use in a downpour, but there in the mouth I can see a tent pack that would protect from almost any sort of weather. If I had the guts to go in and fight for it against the other 23 tributes, which I have been instructed not to do. So I'm just going to question here, do you think Katniss is going to go straight into the cornucopia and try and grab anything she can to help her survival, or do you think she's going to follow instructions and just run as far away from the other tributes to stay alive? What do you think? So my prediction, knowing Katniss, is she's going to go against instruction and she's going to go for it. She's going to go towards that horn-shaped cornucopia. Let's find out. We're on a flat, open stretch of ground, a plain, hard, packed dirt. Behind the tributes across from me, I can see nothing, indicating either a steep downward slope or even cliff. To my right lies a lake. To my left and back, sparse, piney woods. This is where Haymitch would want me to go, immediately. So she's thinking, what should she do? Again, we're ending the paragraph here with one word, immediately. So it's quite similar to our 60 seconds back up at the top. 60 seconds and immediately. So it's adding pace, so speed to the action. So we're meant to be aware of how her heart is hammering. It's a really intense moment where she has 60 seconds to make these life-changing decisions and decide how she's going to play the Hunger Games. I hear his instructions in my head. Just clear out, put as much distance as you can between yourselves and the others, and find a source of water. But it's tempting, so tempting, when I see the bounty waiting there before me. So I just want you to clarify what this means. What does bounty mean? And no, it doesn't mean a chocolate bar. Okay, so it means your collection of goodies. So when you go, for example, trick-or-treating, what you get in your buckets is your bounty. So it's what things you have collected. So pirates might have their bounty or their treasure. So the bounty is what's in the cornucopia that she knows she could do with. And I know that if I don't get it, someone else will. That the career tributes who survive the bloodbath will divide up most of these life-sustaining spoils. Something catches my eye. There, resting on a mound of blanket rolls, is a silver sheath of arrows and a bow, already strung, just waiting to be engaged. That's mine, I think. It's meant for me. Okay, so again, thinking back to our predictions, mine was that she's going to find it really hard to resist going for all of the things in the cornucopia, and I'm going to stick with that. I think now she's seen the bow and arrows, she's really tempted. I'm fast. I can sprint faster than any of the girls in our school, although a couple can beat me in distance races. But this 40-yard length, this is what I am built for. I know I can get it, I know I can reach it first, but then the question is, how quickly can I get out of there? By the time I've scrambled up the packs and grabbed the weapons, others will have reached the horn, and one or two I might be able to pick off. But say there's a dozen. At that close range, they could take me down with the spears and the clubs, or their own powerful fists. So what I want you to do, just quickly, is highlight any language in this paragraph here that relates to violence to show how this really is a situation of life or death. So I want you to just pick out any violent imagery. So we've got weapons, spears, clubs, powerful fists, and also pick off. She's saying she might have to pick people off. She means might have to kill them, so it's really brutal. Still, I won't be the only target. I'm betting many of the other tributes would pass up a smaller girl, even one who scored an 11 in training, to take out their more fierce adversaries. So adversaries is quite a tricky word. It's got a really, there's another word which means exactly the same, which is probably easier to understand. So it's enemies. Your adversaries are your enemies or your competitors. So your adversaries in a football match would be the opposite team. Haymitch has never seen me run. Maybe if he had, he'd tell me to go for it. Get the weapon, since that's the very weapon that might be my salvation. Again, salvation. Another word to replace salvation, feel free to look it up on the online dictionary if you'd like to find your own clarification, is saviour. That might be what saves me. So yes, her bow and arrow is her skill that we know helps her survive. And I only see one bow in that whole pile. I know the minute must be almost up and will have to decide what my strategy will be, and I find myself positioning my feet to run, not away into the stir-rounding forest, but towards the pile, towards the bow. When suddenly I notice Peter. He's about 5 tributes to my right, quite a fair distance. Still, I can tell he's looking at me, and I think he might be shaking his head. But the sun's in my eyes, and while I'm puzzling over it, the gong rings out. Okay, so just to summarise, that's been a really intense 60 minutes where Katniss's thoughts are so conflicted as to what she should do. Also, it seems like Peter's sending her a signal, trying to perhaps save her, because he knows her so well. He knows that she's going to see that bow and arrow and want it, and he knows that'll be a really bad idea. That's just a couple of predictions and summaries there. And I've missed it. I've missed my chance, because those extra couple of seconds I've lost by not being ready are enough to change my mind about going in. My feet shuffle for a moment, confused at the direction my brain wants to take, and then I lunge forward, scoop up the sheet of plastic and a loaf of bread. The pickings are so small and I'm so angry with Peter for distracting me that I sprint in 20 yards to retrieve a bright orange backpack that could hold anything, because I can't stand leaving with virtually nothing. A boy, I think from District 9, reaches the pack at the same time I do, and for a brief time we grapple for it, and then he coughs, splattering my face with blood. I stagger back, repulsed by the warm, sticky spray. Then the boy slips to the ground. Okay, so I'm just going to, before I read on, I'm just going to sort of predict why this would have happened. So if someone coughs and they cough out blood, which has gone all over Katniss, which is just disgusting, and then he slips to the ground, it suggests that perhaps he's been wounded, like from behind. So they're running towards this backpack, she's grabbed it, he's grabbed it, and then he's clearly been attacked at the same time. Does that mean Katniss is in danger? That's when I see the knife in his back. There you go. So he's got a knife in his back. So perhaps this is our first death. Already other tributes have reached the cornucopia and are spreading out to attack. Yes, the girl from District 2, 10 yards away, running toward me, one hand clutching a half-dozen knives. I've seen her throw in training. She never misses. And I'm her next target. So just to clarify, if you're not quite sure, a half dozen is 6, so a dozen is 12. So she's got 6 knives in her hand, she's about to throw them at Katniss. All the general fear I've been feeling condenses into an immediate fear of this girl. This predator who might kill me in seconds. Adrenaline shoots through me and I sling the pack over one shoulder and run full speed for the woods. I can hear the blade whistling towards me and I reflexively hike the pack up to protect my head. The blade lodges in the pack. Both straps on my shoulders now, I make for the trees. Somehow I know the girl will not pursue me, that she'll be drawn back into the cornucopia before all the good stuff is gone. A grin crosses my face. Thanks for the knife, I think. So already that backpack's been useful and she's got a knife out of it. At the edge of the woods I turn for one instant to survey the field. About a dozen or so tributes are hacking away at one another at the horn. Oh. Several lie dead already on the ground. So dozen, as I said earlier, is 12. So there's 12 people just hacking away at one another. That's a really gruesome piece of imagery there. So some are already dead. Those who have taken flight are disappearing into the trees or into the void opposite me. So if you've heard of when you're in danger, you have either fight or flight mechanism in your brain. So Katniss has chosen flight. And obviously these dozen or so career tributes who have been trained all their lives to participate in the Hunger Games, they've gone with fight, but as we already know, lots of them are dead. So maybe just try and empathise here. Put yourself in the character's shoes. Are you fight or flight? What do you think? I'm definitely flight. I continue running until the woods have hidden me from the other tributes, then slow into a steady jog that I think I can maintain for a while. For the next few hours, I alternate between jogging and walking, putting as much distance as I can between myself and my competitors. I lost my bread during the struggle with the boy from District 9, but managed to stuff my plastic in my sleeve, so as I walk I fold it neatly and tuck it into a pocket. I also free the knife. It's a fine one with a long sharp blade, serrated near the handle, which will make it handy for sawing through things, and slide it into my belt. I don't dare stop to examine the contents of the pack yet. I just keep moving, pausing only to check for pursuers. I can go a long time. I know that from my days in the woods, but I will need water. That was Haymitch's second instruction, and since I sort of botched the first, I keep a sharp eye out for any sign of it. No luck. The woods begin to evolve, and the pines are intermixed with a variety of trees. Some I recognise, some completely foreign to me. At one point I hear a noise and pull my knife, thinking I may have to defend myself, but I've only startled a rabbit. Good to see you, I whisper. If there's one rabbit, there could be hundreds, just waiting to be snared. So what she means there is snared is captured, so she knows she's probably got food, she can survive because she knows how to hunt. So that's made her feel a little bit more comfortable. The ground slopes down. I don't particularly like this. Valleys make me feel trapped. So if you imagine a valley is sort of a V shape, and if she's down there, then people can see her and she feels trapped. I want to be high, like in the hills around District 12, where I can see my enemies approaching. But I have no choice to keep going. Funny though, I don't feel too bad. The days of gorging myself have paid off. I've got staying power even though I'm short on sleep. Being in the woods is rejuvenating. I'm glad for the solitude. Okay, so we've got two tricky words there with really simple meanings. So I just want you to use your online dictionary to clarify them. Or if you already know, write down a word that means the same. So rejuvenating is refreshing. So she feels refreshed because of the sleep, even though she's tired because of all the food she's been eating. And solitude is alone, to be alone. So she's glad to be alone, glad to not have to go to dinner, glad to not have to be constantly doing interviews and performing. Even though it's an illusion, because I'm probably on screen right now. So obviously we know she's got that tracking device we discussed. We know that she's actually being tracked all the time and on TV in this crazy, deathly reality show that she's on in the Hunger Games. Not consistently, but off and on. There are so many deaths to show the first day that a tribute trekking through the woods isn't much to look at. But they'll show me enough to let people know I'm alive, uninjured and on the move. One of the heaviest days of betting is the opening, when the initial casualties come in. But that can't compare to what happens as the field shrinks to a handful of players. It's late afternoon when I begin to hear the cannons. Each shot represents a dead tribute. The fighting must have finally stopped at the cornucopia. They never collect the bloodbath bodies until the killers have dispersed. So that means spread out. They've run off to wherever they're going to try and hide. On the opening day, they don't even fire the cannons until the initial fighting's over, because it's too hard to keep track of the fatalities. I allow myself to pause, panting, as I count the shots. 1, 2, 3, on and on until they reach 11. 11 dead in all, 13 left to play. So I'm going to highlight that because I think if we're summarising, it's quite important to know how many have died and how many are still left as we track the Hunger Games. My fingernails scrape at the dry blood the boy from District 9 coughed into my face. He's gone, certainly. I wonder about Peter. Has he lasted through the day? I will know in a few hours. When they project the dead images in the sky for the rest of us to see. So there's like a projection on the sky of all the different faces of who's gone, just to remind the competitors and the people. All of a sudden, I'm overwhelmed by the thought that Peter may be already lost, bled white, collected, and in the process of being transported back to the capital to be cleaned up, redressed and shipped in a simple wooden box back to District 12. Okay, so that's quite a long sentence there. And the reason why the author has done that is because it's just a flurry of her thoughts and her worry about Peter. So it shows that worry, because when you're worried, you often, your mind races and you say loads of things. And that's what the author is trying to replicate. No longer here, heading home. I tried to remember if I saw him once the action started, but the last image I can conjure up is Peter shaking his head as the gong rang out. Okay, so I'm going to pause there. And as always, your homework is to read. So I would like you to read up to the end of chapter 12. So not 2 chapters this week. So, sorry, yes, 2 chapters. Read the end of chapter 11 and 12. So read chapter 11 and 12. Ready for me to start reading chapter 13 with you next time. So I'm really excited to find out what's happening in the Hunger Games. It makes me really on edge as I read, because you're just hoping people aren't going to get killed, especially the characters we know, like the little girl, I think it's Rue, and Katniss and Peter. Okay, so until next time, good luck reading, enjoy it, and we will be ready to read chapter 13.